we welcome you to our community with humility and courage. Born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings and the human family lives whole and reconciled. Mary will light our chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Jan and Mary or to listen with an open heart. Let the music move you with its message, its tune, its expression. So let's sing the opening hymn, I Climbed a Mountain by Lynn Kaufman.
I climbed a mountain to be with you. I calmed my mind to see what's true. I breathed you in when the songs of birds and filled with peace. There are no words. I climbed a mountain to be with you. I closed my eyes to feel what's true. Oh, winds they blew and kissed my cheek. I breathed you in and found relief. I climbed a mountain to be with you, to feel you close, to know what's true. I breathe you into my bones, sweet smells of earth carry me home. I climbed a mountain to be with you. I climbed my mind to see what's true. I breathed you in with the songs of birds and filled with peace. There are no words, and filled with peace. There are no words.
Thank you, Mary. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the third principle. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and the encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Spiritual growth isn't about a vertical ascent to heaven, but about growth in every dimension at once. It's spiritual in 3D. Growth is spirit. Growth in spirit doesn't measure one's proximity to a God above, but rather the spaciousness of one's own soul, its volume, its capacity, its size. We need souls that can take in the world in all its complexity and diversity, yet still maintain our integrity. And we need souls that can love and be in relationship with all of this complexity. Instead of fight or flight, we need a spiritual posture of embrace. My name is Diane DeMarco, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning under these challenging circumstances. If you are not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. And a reminder, if you wish to see this or any of our past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider becoming a member of our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a board member if you are interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone.
I didn't put it in,
What?
the affirmation.
The affirmation, okay.
We'll now recite the affirmation by heart. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand button near the lower right of your participant's window. When Susan calls your name, click the unmute me button near the lower left of the participant's window and then speak. Randy.
Hello. Last September, end of last month, September 30th, you should have received in the email, all the members of this community, a note from Lori regarding our vote for the amended bylaws. The amended bylaws will be on the ballot for the membership meeting in November. And if you wish to see what's going on with amended bylaws, there's an attachment with that, and also a comparative of the amended bylaws compared to the current bylaws. So you can see what's going on, what's been changed, etc. And also at the after the service next week, I'll be holding a Q&A session regarding those changes so that you can be informed before you vote. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Christine, if you would please unmute yourself and make your announcement.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little faded, but you will come back in, I'm sure.
Speaking closer here. So we're about to begin our 5th annual Thanksgiving basket drive at church, and this is one of the few congregation-wide events that we do together. We're collecting food for the Thanksgiving baskets that we work on with Danila Reyes of Link Family Resources. And so we will be sending out a list of foods that the families request. And we will also need some volunteers. So this year, because we're not having our services at church, I think we will be collecting at the church on weekends for maybe 2 hours. And what we need are is a few volunteers who are willing to just staff the back door for the weeks that we're going to be collecting. So you can contact me if you would like to do that. You know, bring a book, bring your spouse, and it's pretty easy to do. I will be posting the weekends that we'll be collecting. They'll be for 4 weeks, the last 2 in October, the first 2 in November. Kat and I can also pick up food if that's more convenient for you. So this is our 5th year doing this project. It's a great project, and it's really wonderful when everyone contributes to it. And so I just thank you in advance, and we'll be getting you the details. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for doing that for the Social Justice Committee. Nancy and Robert, please unmute yourself. Let's see. You lowered your hand, but did you have an announcement to make?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Oh, okay. Yes, we are the Moving Towards Racial Justice discussion group is meeting this Wednesday at 7. Everybody's welcome to join us. We will be talking about a book called Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race by Renee Eddy Lodge. Excuse the mispronunciation probably, but the Zoom link is in the newsletter. If you need it, just email me, tolan@charter.net.
Okay, thank you. Marianne, would you please unmute yourself and make your announcement?
Good morning, all. My Jazzin' in the Pines show has finally got a date. We're going to be on October 24th, almost 2 weeks from yesterday. 2 weeks from yesterday, Jazzin' in the Pines. If you want any information or you want me to make your reservation, contact me and I'll do it for you. Thank you for your support. 3rd time's a charm.
Thank you, Marianne. Dolores, you did have your hand up. Did you have an announcement? Okay. Got And also, I understand from Anita that Joyce Verone has been released from the hospital. However, she does not know if she is back at her house or if she's gone into a skilled nursing facility. If anyone knows where she might be, please let us know. And if there are no further announcements, I'll turn it back to Diane.
Next week, John Loring presents Embracing Paradox, Steinbeck's Cannery Row at 75. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life. But please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. Timber.
All right, today's reading is intended to perhaps set the mood in the sense that we're going to be discussing later, taking a really good hard look at ourselves. And so I want to talk about a time when I first tried to lose weight. It was very difficult for me to spend time with friends who were still eating at Burger King every day. So I surrounded myself with people who regularly exercised, they made nutritious food choices, and they kept stress to a minimum in their daily lives. A few weeks later, those same friends told me that helping me find the path to better health strengthened their own resolve to stay on it. Similarly, it doesn't matter how badly you want to grow and evolve spiritually or how many inspirational books you read, if the people in your life keep you confined in a closed loop of destructive behavior. The question is, what does destructive behavior mean? When dieting, it was easy to define French fries and ice cream as destructive, for example. But what does destructive spiritual behavior mean? Where do we draw the line? I mean, I know people personally who literally struggle financially to put food on the table or pay their rent on time, but their houses are full of crystals and Buddha statues and song bowls, and it's like hardcore activists with high blood pressure who are one protest away from collapsing. And I know minimalists who shame other minimalists for not being minimalistic enough. Buddhism teaches us the eightfold path to end our suffering is through right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The problem I have with this common translation of right speech or right action is that it implies there is wrong action, wrong livelihood, and so on. Instead of right versus wrong, I prefer distinguishing between behavior that helps end our suffering and behavior that does not. This way, French fries and ice cream aren't inherently wrong. They are simply not very conducive to weight loss if that's what someone is trying to achieve. Now, it may sound like the same thing, but look what happens with activism, for example. It is always on the edge between nonviolent protest and a riot because at some point, fighting for what we believe is right turns into fighting to prove that we are right. It switches from an altruistic endeavor to an egoistic one. And yes, the Buddha was an activist in that he actively encouraged people to think for themselves. But that is very different from telling people what to think. So don't cut people out of your life the way I eliminated fried foods from my diet. In fact, surround yourself with people who offer you a salad in one hand and a milkshake in the other, because strength comes from repeatedly and actively choosing what is helpful for your journey, not from living in a little bubble from which we've eliminated French fries. As it turns out, an echo box in which you only hear people who agree with you, it seems like a good idea at the start, but it is ultimately not at all conducive to our growth. It doesn't open our mind, it closes it. This is exactly why monks are discouraged from making the peaceful monastery our permanent home. Tempting as that may be, we are urged to go back into the world of chaos and hostility because that is where we can lead by example, help people find the path, and thereby strengthen our own resolve to stay on it. So I know it's tempting to put yourself in a comfortable little bubble, but it ends up suffocating you. Growth begins when we leave our comfort zone, so trust yourself to stay true to yourself, even if others around you behave differently. And don't be discouraged if you feel alone at first. You're not. I'm right here with you.
Thank you, Timber. Let us enter a place of peace and serenity where you are one with your spiritual being. Be at peace within your space where the absence of all that is temporal is its most cherished gift. Let us enter the stillness. Please come back now. Today, Timber Hawkeye will be spending time with all of you. Timber Hawkeye is the best-selling author of Buddhist Boot Camp and Faithfully Religionless. His books and the Buddhist Boot Camp podcast offer a secular and non-sectarian approach to being at peace with the world, both within and around us, with the intention to awaken, enlighten, enrich, and inspire. And now, a Sunday with Timber.
We're going to do something different today. If you've ever attended one of my discussion circles at UU in Cambria, we have literally physically a discussion circle where your participation is encouraged. So I would love for this to be more of a discussion than a talk. And I want to talk about the reading, about the importance of stepping outside our comfort zone and the dangers of doing that. And I want to talk about manifestation, you know, what doing that actually manifests, and what we think about, we bring about. And I want to hear what you guys think about it. Again, I want it to be a discussion, so don't sit there quietly. What I mean about, you know, what is often referred to as the law of attraction or manifestation, when I'm talking about what you think about, you bring about, I mean, complaining attracts more things for you to complain about, and gratitude attracts more things for you to appreciate. So in many ways, I think we are really good at imagining the kind of life we want, but we're not really good at saying no to anything that isn't that. So I want to hear from you guys what you think is the hindrance, what you think is the obstacle, what gets in our way from applying what we intellectually know is better for us, good for us, and so on. And we get, I don't know if it's sucked into, deviated, tempted, lured into a life we don't want. And again, if you want to participate, just raise your blue hand. We'll call on you and just, but I want to figure out, you know, what is it? You know, in Buddhism, we talk that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional, meaning we create a lot of our own suffering. So my continuous search is to figure out how are we doing that, and why are we choosing to suffer? What have we deemed more important than our true happiness, our dedication, determination, and conviction to live in line with our core values, and how easily we, for lack of a better word, fall off that wagon. If any of you have, again, I don't want this to be a talk, so join in. Whatever thread you pull on is what we're going to go. Because, you know, before good things come our way, we must also believe that we deserve them, or we might actually sabotage them when they do. I know that I've personally rejected what was best for me because I didn't believe I deserved it. So I think a certain amount of self-worth and self-respect is involved in why we drop what we claim is most important to us and reach for what perhaps is, I don't know, again, this is where you guys come in. What is more socially acceptable? What is more culturally acceptable? What is it? I want to hear from you guys. All right. Oh no, someone just wants to come in, not raise their hand. I was I was teased. Ooh, Marianne has something to say.
Okay, I'll start us off.
Thank you.
I'm thinking what you were saying about interchange and how you create yourself to make a change. I know in my personal situation, a lot of it comes from the phrases and the messages that you receive from childhood, from parents, especially in the form of complaining. Oh, this isn't good. Oh, it's a nasty day. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, that doesn't fit. And these repeated phrases that you learn sort of innately to carry on. And I know what worked for me personally is, this doesn't work, but what will work? I mean, changing the complaint into a possible change of scenery, change of location, change of your attitude. And I'm just wondering if anybody else has kind of gone through that transition. I'm still working it because I still have those repeated phrases as far as complaining is concerned, because I think that's one of the biggest obstacles to growth is complaining.
I agree completely. And I'm really grateful that you shared that. And it's true. We are creatures of habit, and we were raised with a certain, behavior pattern. And it's really difficult for us to break that pattern. And many people focus on, how can I break it? How can I end it? How can I do away with the ego? How can I? And it's really difficult to stop if we don't have something with which to replace it. So, because it's the way life works, like you said, it's still a practice. We're always practicing, and we need a path. So it's not like, oh, you need to get off this path. Okay, but where do I go? the the best practice I've had in creating new patterns of behavior, uh, steering myself back onto the path I want to be on, has been by utilizing a mantra. And I know that for many people, when they hear the word mantra, they're thinking about some Hindu phrase or some saying in a foreign exotic language that they repeat to themselves over and over again. But it doesn't have to be. The way my teacher explained the benefits and use of a mantra, and I promise I'm going to tie this back into creating new behavior patterns. I promise. Just stick with me. The way mantra was taught to me, my teacher was telling me about what they have in India. I guess the closest thing we would compare it to is what we would call a farmer's market. And it's just this outdoor market with vendors on both sides, and they're selling saris and flowers and fruit and vegetables. And these vendors are out there every day, just on the dirt road. And they would have these parades that go through the market. And the elephants in the parade would regularly reach their trunks and grab bananas off that vendor's table and cantaloupes off that one and watermelon. And it just created such a mess. The vendors couldn't afford to do away with all that produce and the loss and the chaos that ensued and the destruction, because the elephants were like a bull in a china shop. They weren't, these weren't like stable uh, vendor tables or booths. These were just makeshift. And so they tried to figure out how do we keep the spirit of the parade? How do we keep the vendors, but how do we stop the elephants from reaching over and grabbing all the fruit and vegetables? And they discovered that if you gave the elephant a stick of bamboo and you stuck it in the elephant's mouth, then it wouldn't reach for anything else. It already had something to bite onto. And once it had something to bite onto, it wouldn't reach for anything else. That is how a mantra was explained to me, that a mantra is like a stick of bamboo for us to bite onto. And so it is true that many of us have learned from our parents, teachers, preachers, society, certain behavior patterns, complaining or focusing on the negative, whatever our pattern is that we're trying to break. But in order to break it, we need to create a new pattern. We need to break the pattern of our trunks reaching for whatever they see and focusing on biting onto, chewing on what the new path we want to follow. And that stick of bamboo, it can be the rudder that brings us off the path we no longer want onto a new one. And that could easily be done. I say easily in the sense that it's difficult, but it's not as difficult as spending the rest of our lives complaining and with negative mindset and all that. And so the easy way to do that is by having something new to go to, a new mantra that every time you catch yourself thinking a negative thought or about to complain, you steer yourself back onto the path of, what can I say about this situation that's positive? And it is a practice. You catch yourself, just like in meditation, we are often taught to, count our breaths, go from 1 to 10. And when we get to 10, go back to 1, and then get to 10 and go back to 1. And if you've ever tried that meditation, you know that you set that intention in the beginning. I'm going to get to 10, and then we're going to go back to 1. And before you know it, you find yourself counting 37, 38. And you're like, wait a minute, I was supposed to get to 10 and go back to 1. And yes, that is true. And you catch yourself and you bring yourself back. If you only do a 5-minute meditation, and in those 5 minutes, you catch yourself 20 times and bringing yourself back to 1, you didn't fail meditation. You didn't screw it up. You didn't suck at it. That's a successful meditation because you caught yourself 20 times and brought yourself back. And the benefit of that meditation is not those 5 minutes so you can tap yourself on the back and say, good job, you brought yourself back. It's later in the day when you catch yourself about to complain or about to follow any path that it deviates from the path you say you want to be on, and bring yourself back. I see Andrew has raised his hand. So go ahead, Andrew, and unmute yourself. Thank you.
First of all, it's so good to see you. I've missed our Saturdays meetings, and it's great to see you, Timber.
Thank you.
So I want to say something about the echo chamber that you referred to, where you only hear the things that kind of agree with what you believe. I have strong feelings and opinions, but I also believe strongly in, I guess, what I call critical thinking, which automatically forces you to question even what you believe in strongly. There's always some other belief, and compassionate thinking leads you to have to accept that others feel as strongly in their way as you do in yours. And it also has something to do with, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I just wonder if you could reflect on that as an answer to the echo chamber. It's nice to hear opinions that support what you believe, but it's important to realize others believe so equally strongly in others.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the first thing that jumped out at me. My job is really to just kind of hold up a mirror and go, look what you're doing. And what the first thing that jumped out at me, what I hear is like, I have these really strong beliefs and opinions, and it makes me chuckle, not at you, but at the hilarity of us looking through a tiny little peephole in a very short, brief period of time into our lives at the world as a whole, at the universe as a whole. And yet with our limited perception, with our limited understanding, we claim to know what's best, what's right. And it's just, that's when I do that, when I find myself having a strong opinion or belief about something, I laugh at myself, like, look at you with your limited perception and understanding, trying to claim that you know how to run a country, that you know how to solve the world's problems. Like, I just remind myself of a mantra my teachers gave me a long time ago, which was simply, don't know. Just reminding myself that I don't know. So much so that the only thing I know for certain is that I don't know anything for certain, which is why I never argue with anyone about anything. I just listen. The only time I find that I and other people are inclined to argue with other people or even defend their beliefs is when they don't themselves believe in their own point of view firmly enough, and they see that someone else's opinion, different as it may be, threatens their belief. And in the book, the example I gave, and I'm sure I've spoken about this in our Saturday night gatherings, I use the extreme example that if I meet someone who believes the sky is green and I believe it's blue, I don't need to argue with them. I don't need to get 20 people on my side and convince them to, like, look, everyone agrees with me. I don't need to ask Alexa and go, hey, what color is the sky? I just walk away from that conversation knowing that to some people, the sky looks green. And I can do that because the blueness of my sky is not jeopardized by how green someone else perceives it to be. So then I immediately jump to where you say, oh, I know it's good to accept that other people have a different viewpoint than mine. It's not just good, it's the practice is to listen and honor that according to their time, place, and circumstance, like you said, their truth their reality is just as real to them as my reality is to me. So that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my approach. I use humor not to beat myself up, but to kind of giggle at my own ego, thinking it superior to someone else's intelligence or someone else's beliefs or opinions that I somehow know, not just the truth with a capital T, but like this universal truth. And if only everyone in the world agreed with me, then we will all live in peace. I realize how absurd that is when I say it, and that's what keeps me from saying it. Does any of that apply? I want to get your feedback before we move on to Mike and Sue.
Oh, absolutely. I just wrote down 2 words, don't know. That's really sums it up.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know. We have no idea. And anytime we think we know, or we think we've arrived at what we're tempted to call a universal truth, notice how often, if not always, what you think is a universal truth is conveniently enough your own truth. And that just in itself reminds me that this is all ego driven, ego based. I just need everyone to agree with me. And if I knew, perhaps that would make sense, but I don't know. So it might not. Mike and Sue, go for it. Let me know what you got.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Sue. And I wondered if you could speak when you said getting out of your comfort zone. I believe a lot of this is risk-taking for us to make a change. And many times we choose safety. And the other point, to Mary Ann's point, is I don't think we teach children and people how to take reasonable risks to enhance their life.
Interesting that you immediately went to living outside your comfort zone as taking a risk. Perhaps that's what it looks like for you. And I understand that. Living outside your comfort zone is, yes, taking risk in relation to what Andrew was talking about. Living outside your comfort zone would be listening to someone who believes the exact opposite from you, someone on the other spectrum, and not to argue with them, unplug your keyboard, but to listen, just to listen, to get a better understanding. As far as the fear that's holding us back because it's risky and the unknown, it stems from this idea that, again, this level of certainty, this level of knowing that I know what tomorrow is going to bring. And I'm hoping, God, I'm hoping that this pandemic has done nothing if not teach us that we have no certainty of anything. It's all been an illusion. We have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know we're going to be here. And in fact, we've never known. All we've lost is the illusion of certainty. We end up getting caught up in this idea that, well, I know this, so this is comfortable for me because it's familiar, and the unknown is not familiar, and that would be a risk. But I would beg that the bigger risk is stagnation. It's, I think that the most dangerous sentence in our language is, but we've always done things this way. And that stems from, but it's comfortable. It's I know this one, let's stick with it. It's why people stay in dysfunctional relationships. It's why people stay in jobs that, suck their souls. I just this morning, I wonder if I can pull this up. I just this morning posted something that relates to why people hang on. I'm just going to read it real quick and then we'll move on. I spoke about having dinner at a friend's house, and I noticed that all of their trash was piled in the corner of the kitchen next to the garbage can instead of in it. And they said, we bought this high-tech trash can a few years ago, and we ran out of the special garbage bags that perfectly fit. And about 4 months ago, the manufacturer is still out of stock. So yeah, it's annoying. We just keep piling the garbage next to the trash can instead of putting it in it. And I was like, why don't you just get a new trash can that takes regular bags? You would think we would, they laughed. But we've already spent so much money on this stupid thing. And they were pointing at the fancy, shiny, motion-activated, yet completely useless trash can sitting in the corner of that kitchen, mocking them. I've heard of people who dread and complain about hanging out with certain friends because they never have anything to talk about or nothing in common. And then the conversation dies after just 5 minutes of seeing one another. So why are you hanging out with them in the first place? I would ask. Well, we've known each other since elementary school, they would reply, as if having a history with someone automatically implies there's also a future. It seems we cling to things and people just because we've spent so much time, money, or energy in them in the past. But I do remember Steve, one of the attorneys in one of the law firms where I used to work. One day at the law firm, he just, like, I remember him slamming the phone, and he just stood up and said, you know what, I'm done. My dad was a lawyer, his dad was a lawyer, and I was raised to believe that's exactly what I need to become as well. But you know what? Despite the years of law school and hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, all I ever wanted to be was a bartender. He put on his jacket, he took the elevator down, and we never saw him again. Last I heard, he's happy as can be tending bars somewhere in Seattle. But Stevie's the exception, not the rule. Most of us stay in miserable jobs, continue living in neighborhoods we dislike, and we maintain dysfunctional relationships for decades, all because we think change would require more energy than staying put. There's a self-inquiry teacher, Papa G, who said, what comes, let it come, what stays, let it stay, and what goes, let it go. I think we do great with that. With what comes, we let it stay, but we fall short in letting things go. What is it about release and surrender that scares us so much? I mean, we are a congregation of faith. We're all about surrender and allow and acceptance. So what is it about surrender that scares us so much? Does it really stem from a core viewpoint of scarcity? You know, that we wouldn't have enough? Or is our ego so afraid of being bruised that it regularly defends its bad decisions? I say, don't cling to a mistake just because you spent so much time making it, or money or energy. So I don't know if that ties into what you were saying about, yeah, we were raised this way, and we often blame our past and our upbringing on how we are today. And yes, we are not to blame for the programming we received as children, but we are 100% responsible for what we choose today. So I treat those hardcore beliefs and viewpoints and patterns and comfort zones like I treat the junk drawer in the kitchen. Open it up every once in a while. Look at what's in there and ask yourself, not necessarily, why did I keep this 5 years ago? And I'm not just talking about tangible things. I'm talking about this opinion, this belief. It doesn't matter why you picked it up. What matters is, why are you still hanging on to it? Can you do away with that belief, with that viewpoint? Before I move on to, oh, Amanda put out her hand, but we can go back to Amanda. But before I do that, does that at all address the issue of stepping outside our comfort zone? I don't know where you went.
I'm here.
Yeah, there you are, Sue.
Well, very well said. And I think that there's a lot of safety in safety, and that's, people choose. And I think if that's your comfort zone and it makes you happy, but when you were talking about not being happy in something and making change, that excites some people, and then others shy away from it. Thank you. Very well said.
Thank you. Yeah, there's an interesting thing physiologically that I know. Our body actually responds to stress and excitement the same way. Our body doesn't know the difference. So I understand that some things are risky and scary. And we were raised with the quote unquote mantra of proceed with caution. My switch, my rudder, is when I catch myself thinking caution, caution, I move myself back to proceed with curiosity. And that opens up a world of possibility rather than a war of what ifs and what if the worst case scenario. And in fact, that in itself is often a behavior pattern, immediately thinking of the worst case scenario. It's like, what could go wrong? Well, what could go right is another possible exciting opportunity that even something like a pandemic can bring in us, and go, all right, how can we still get together? How can we grow from this? How can we perhaps finally, so many people talk about having a life of leisure. I rarely ever see or meet anyone who does anything leisurely. So I think this gave us time to do puzzles, to read, etc. We have time for one more. So Amanda, go ahead.
Thank you. This is probably going to be more of a just kind of a thought question because it's kind of a big question. I appreciate the talk. You know, I think that everybody pretty much accepts you can only change yourself. You can't change other people. And a lot of the tools and strategies that you talk about for becoming more centered and less ego driven are great at the individual level, but we're social animals that need other people really to thrive. And I don't know if Buddhism or any of your books or teachings talk about strategies and tools for the collective.
They do, and I'm going to sum it up real quick because it is a big topic. Typically, when we do this on Saturday nights, it's an hour and a half long. So trying to do this in 20 minutes is challenging. The interesting thing about what you're saying is, so what you said really stems from, oh, we are social beings. We need the collective. We need people. That in itself is a belief system that you firmly believe, and you believe it's not just true for you, but it's true universally as a species. This is how we are. That's your narrative. But is that true for people who live in solitude, people who live alone in the hills in the Himalayas and meditate for 30 years at a time? Is that true? You know, like when people say, oh, we need physical contact, and I've abstained from all physical contact for 12 years. Does that mean I don't need it? Or does that mean the theory that we need it is someone's belief system and what you believe becomes true? Or am I somehow depriving myself of something that someone else implies I need, but I don't? Do we create the need and then try to fill it? Do we create the void? I understand there's benefit, and Buddhism definitely talks about the importance of the collective. You know, the core of Buddhism is taking refuge in three things. So they're called the three jewels: the Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma, the teachings, and the Sangha, the congregation, us, all of us students who are trying to figure it out. So yes, there's benefit in the collective. There's a chapter in my book where I actually talk about how I got into this huge argument with a woman who was so upset that I kept urging people to focus and work on themselves. And she's like, no, we need social change. We need everyone to change. We need to. And I said, yes, I agree. But do you see that everyone is made up of individuals? And if we work on ourselves on an individual level, we are part of society. By fixing ourselves, we are fixing society. But we're not doing it by pushing our beliefs and opinions on other people. When you push something, you're pushing them away. So an important thing to remember is to never push your opinions and beliefs on someone and think that you're helping them. You can't give by throwing. And that's what we often do, is we throw our opinions, we throw our beliefs, and we think we're helping people. You can't give by throwing. The best thing we can do is lead by example, work on this, be peaceful, and thereby we are part of the solution instead of part of the pollution. We are peaceful activists, sometimes just by staying home and drinking a cup of tea on our stoop, because we're not part of the pollution. Fair trade tea. But you get what I'm saying is we can lead by example. We can be the change, as Gandhi said, that we wish to see in the world. In the shortest nutshell I could put it in before we run out of time, that's the best answer I've got. Thank you, all of you, so much for coming here today and participating in this. And the brave soldier who was the first to start the discussion, thank you. I can't do this without the participation, so I really appreciate you guys. Mahalo.
Thank you, Timber. Normally at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of the methods shown on the slideshow. These methods will also be posted in the newsletter and on the UUCC website itself. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving by sending us an offering. Thank you. What a great choice, Jan, to accompany Timber's talk today with beautiful, soothing music. Thank you. Our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology. From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue. Please join in singing the closing hymn, May Peace Prevail, compliments of the Makawayo Buddhist Temple from the island of Maui in Hawaii. Words by Carrie Wawamato and melody by Takeo Kudo. May peace live as we talk, with kindness in our voice, embracing Buddha's light. May peace, tranquility, Thank you, Mary. Let us now recite the valediction. The flame of this chalice will no longer burn today, but the light of the flame within our hearts continues to shine brightly, illuminating the love felt in our community. After the benediction, please click on the gallery view button in the upper right corner of your screen. Timber?
In a world full of conflict, may we create peace within. In a world full of hunger, may we be grateful for the abundance in our lives. And in a world where so many people are alone, may we be grateful for one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Timber, and everyone who joined us today.